My mother-in-law tried to bribe me with $40,000 on my wedding day to leave her son, but I discovered she'd stolen it from me. And I taught her a brutal lesson. I'm a 30-year-old woman who got married to my 27-year-old boyfriend 2 days ago, but the day went horribly wrong, all because of my mother-in-law. My husband and I met at a conference where he asked me out. I agreed because he was polite and funny, which was pretty much everything I wanted in a guy. We met each other's families around 6 months into the relationship, and his mother didn't like me one bit. She made sure I felt that, but I'm not one to get fazed by people who dislike me, so I didn't pay much attention to her behavior. My boyfriend tried to get her to behave and rebuked her many times in person when they were alone. He told me she was just too hung up on the fact that I was older, had a higher income, and was also slightly taller than him. She thought I was too much in her opinion, but, thankfully, my husband didn't feel that way. We didn't care about superficial things like those, and I couldn't care less about what my mother-in-law believed. After nearly 4 years of sharing laughter, dreams, and countless moments together, my fiancé and I had sealed our commitment with an engagement a year ago. I always believed she would eventually warm up to the idea of our union, as my resolve to stay by his side was unwavering. Initially, her peculiar behavior around me was a minor annoyance, but after the engagement, her attitude shifted dramatically. She began ignoring me entirely, a change I secretly welcomed. It meant fewer awkward encounters, fewer forced smiles, and less tension in my day-to-day life. As our wedding day approached, her presence dwindled further. My mother-in-law, once an occasional visitor, became a ghost in our lives, barely exchanging words with us. My fiancé, consumed by the whirlwind of work and wedding planning, seemed oblivious to her absence. I noticed, of course, but her distance didn't trouble me enough to warrant a confrontation. I had enough on my plate, orchestrating the perfect day to celebrate our love. The venue we chose was a breathtakingly secluded spot nestled deep within a forest, where towering trees and soft whispers of nature promised an intimate, almost magical ceremony. The plan was for me to arrive first, setting the stage for a heartfelt first-look moment that would leave my fiancé speechless. I envisioned his eyes lighting up as he saw me in my dress, framed by the golden sunlight filtering through the leaves. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. My fiancé's car broke down en route from the hotel, stranding him miles away from our woodland haven. The isolation of the location, which had seemed so romantic in planning, now mocked us with its inaccessibility. He couldn't simply walk to the venue, and to make matters worse, he had left the hotel half an hour after me to accommodate my surprise. The delay stretched on, leaving me pacing at the venue, my anticipation turning to frustration as the minutes ticked by. As I waited, my mother-in-law approached, her face unreadable. She asked to speak with me privately, and given the circumstances, I agreed without hesitation. Time was dragging, and I needed a distraction from the growing anxiety about my fiancé's absence. She led me to a quiet corner of the venue, away from the bustling preparations and curious glances of the wedding party. What followed was a moment so surreal, so utterly unexpected, that it felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Without preamble, she pulled out her phone, her fingers moving swiftly across the screen. Within moments, my phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced at it, my breath catching as I saw a bank transfer confirmation for $20,000, deposited directly into my account. Confusion clouded my mind. I stared at her, searching her face for some clue, some explanation for this bizarre gesture. Her expression was cold, almost calculated, as she spoke words that hit me like a slap. The money, she said, was an incentive, a bribe, really, for me to walk away from her son. Right then, right there, on the day of our wedding. She promised an additional $220,000, to be transferred the moment I called off the ceremony and left him for good. The audacity of her offer left me speechless. My mind reeled, struggling to process the implications. $20,000 was no small sum, and the promise of more was staggering. But something else struck me as odd. How could she, a woman of modest means, come up with such a fortune? My mother-in-law wasn't wealthy, she lived comfortably but not extravagantly. Suspicion gnawed at me, a quiet alarm bell ringing in the back of my mind. This wasn't right. It couldn't be. I excused myself politely, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me, and stepped away to check my phone again. Another notification confirmed the deposit, the money now sitting in my account as if it belonged there. But it didn't feel like a gift, it felt like a trap. I dialed my bank, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigated the automated system to reach a representative. What I learned next turned my shock into fury. For the past 4 days, someone had been siphoning $1,000 daily from my personal account into another. Today, half of that stolen sum, $20,000, had been transferred back to me, as if it were some grand gesture. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, my mother-in-law hadn't come up with the money. She had stolen it from me, manipulating my own funds to stage this twisted attempt to sabotage my wedding. The audacity, the betrayal, was almost too much to comprehend. How had she accessed my account? How had she managed to move money without my knowledge? Questions swirled, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Rage fueled my actions as I stormed back to where she stood, her smug expression faltering as she saw the fire in my eyes. I grabbed her arm, my grip firm but controlled, ensuring she couldn't slip away. My bridesmaids, sensing the urgency in my voice, rushed to my side, their confusion mirroring my own from moments ago. I explained the situation in hurried whispers, and they didn't hesitate to help. Together, we kept her from fleeing as she began to protest, her voice rising into frantic screams. She thrashed and shouted, accusing me of misunderstanding, of overreacting, but her words fell on deaf ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was theft, manipulation, a deliberate attempt to destroy the life I was building with her son. I called the police, my voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around me. The serene woodland setting, once a symbol of our love, now felt like the backdrop to a nightmare. As we waited for the authorities, my mind raced with questions. How had she gained access to my account? Had she been planning this for days, weeks, or longer? The daily transfers suggested a calculated scheme, executed with chilling precision. I thought back to the past year, to her coldness after our engagement, her absence in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Had this been her end game all along? To drive a wedge between me and her son, to unravel our future before it could begin? The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined, not just because of the money, but because of what it represented: a mother's rejection of her son's choice, a calculated effort to erase me from his life. My bridesmaids stood by me, their support unwavering as we kept my mother-in-law at bay. Guests began to notice the commotion, their curious glances adding to the tension. I could feel the weight of their stares, but I refused to let embarrassment or doubt creep in. This wasn't about appearances anymore, it was about justice, about protecting myself and the life I was fighting for. My fiancé was still stranded, unaware of the drama unfolding at the venue. Part of me wanted to call him, to tell him everything, but I knew he needed to focus on getting to the venue. I would explain later, when the dust had settled and the truth was laid bare. The police arrived, their presence cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. I recounted the events, showing them the bank notifications, the transfer details, and explaining the conversation with my mother-in-law. Her protests grew louder, but they lacked conviction. The evidence was clear, and the officers took her aside for questioning. As they led her away, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. This wasn't how I had envisioned my wedding day. The joy, the anticipation, the love that should have defined this moment had been overshadowed by deceit. Yet, in that moment, I also felt a surge of strength. I had uncovered her scheme, refused to be bought, and stood my ground. The ceremony was delayed, but my resolve was unshaken. My fiancé arrived eventually, apologetic and flustered, unaware of the storm that had unfolded. As I looked into his eyes, I knew the road ahead would be complicated. We would need to confront his mother's actions, unravel the how and why of her betrayal, and rebuild trust in the wake of such a violation. But for now, I held his hand, drawing strength from the love that had brought us here. The woods around us stood silent, witnesses to both our love and the chaos that had tried to tear it apart. Our wedding day would go on, not as I had planned, but as a testament to our resilience, a promise that no amount of money or malice could break. Half an hour later, the police arrived, and I, along with a couple of bridesmaids, went to the station to explain everything. My maid of honor stayed back at the venue to explain everything to my husband when he arrived, as I knew I'd be too busy at the station to respond to him. At the station, my mother-in-law confessed out of fear that she'd hired a professional hacker to pull off this scam so I'd leave her son. The cybercrime department explained how the hacker likely did it. I'd probably clicked on a link or downloaded something sent to me online, which gave him access to everything on my phone. I didn't receive any notifications from my bank about suspicious activity because the transactions appeared to have been made from my phone itself, and the hacker managed to delete the notifications in time. They had full access to every detail on my phone and could do whatever they wanted. They explained the technical details, but I'm not very tech savvy, so I didn't understand much of it. I'm sure people who deal with such things could explain it better, so I'll leave that to the hackers of Reddit. The bottom line was that someone had been paid to hack into my phone, and that's how my mother-in-law managed to steal $40,000 from me over the last few days and then use that money to bribe me so the wedding wouldn't happen. I don't know what kind of monster does something like this, but at least she confessed, and we were able to have her arrested. She's currently awaiting trial in prison, along with the hacker she hired. On that day, the wedding started late, but we did get married. We hushed up what had happened, and even after my husband found out what his mother had done, he told me he wanted to go ahead with the wedding because he wanted the day to be about us, not her. That was very sweet of him. I've received all my money back, thankfully, and my phone has been wiped clean. I've also changed all my bank details for good measure, and I'm definitely going to be extra careful about what links I click on. Everything else is fine, but the problem is still my mother-in-law. My husband went to visit her in prison yesterday and came back really upset. He told me that his mother is very sorry for what she did and is aware she's going to jail since she confessed in front of the police. However, she's requesting that I put in a word for her and ask for a more lenient sentence because she doesn't want to spend 5 years or so in prison. My husband also thinks I should do this because she's old and, at the end of the day, she's his mother. I couldn't believe he was saying that after what she'd done. She hired a hacker, stole money from me, and then used it to bribe me so I wouldn't marry her son. That's textbook crazy, and I don't think I can ever forgive someone like that, let alone ask for a more lenient sentence. My husband is the love of my life, and he was great on the wedding day, but now that he's met his mother, he's leaning more toward her side, and I can't stand it. I don't know if I'm being selfish or downright cruel, but I don't think her age, she's only in her early 50s, is enough for me to care about her. Even if she were older, I still wouldn't do what my husband asked. I haven't told him yet, but I have no intention of visiting her or asking for a more lenient sentence. Am I wrong for wanting my mother-in-law to get a longer sentence after she hacked into my phone, stole my money, and used it to try to bribe me to leave her son? I've spoken to my husband about this and explained that I don't want his mother to get a lesser sentence. The discussion was tough, but he understood where I was coming from. He's still upset because it's his mother in prison, and his dad passed away a couple of years ago, so she's his only living parent. Of course, he's going to be upset for at least a few days. The trial is about to begin in a few weeks, and since it's a federal crime, my husband is nervous about what will happen. He's helping his mom find a lawyer and hopes that will be enough for her, but he knows I'm the victim here, and expecting me to stand up for her would be messed up. He understands and respects my decision. I never expected him to cut his mother off despite what she did because I know he's a good guy at heart. He wouldn't be able to abandon her over this. I knew that from the beginning and didn't expect him to leave her side. I don't know if it's right, but I don't want him to have to choose. It's weird, but I think that's the right thing to do. He can do his duties as a son and as a husband. Some of you have been wondering what I clicked on. I'm not sure, but I think it was a link I received in a text a couple of weeks ago from an unknown number. That was a huge mistake. It was stupid of me to enter my bank details on a sketchy website without verifying the text's authenticity. I was lucky my mother-in-law confessed, otherwise, I might never have gotten my money back. I'd advise everyone to avoid clicking on links or visiting untrustworthy websites. A couple of days have passed, and today, the mother of the kid who hacked my account came to visit us. My husband and I were home and a bit skeptical at first, but we let her in. She came to apologize for what her son had done, saying he only did it for extra cash. It turns out the hacker was from a poor family, and his dad had recently passed away, so he turned to these means to earn money. Usually, he just hacked into people's ex's accounts and messed with them as a side hustle, but this time, my mother-in-law offered him $10,000 to do her job, and he accepted because it was a significant amount. He could help his mom cover major expenses with that money, so he took the job without thinking much and landed in this mess. He's an accessory to the crime and is facing 2 years of imprisonment. His mother came to apologize on his behalf and nothing more. I accepted the apology because, honestly, the kid was in his early 20s and dealing with serious issues. Besides, he wasn't someone I knew personally, nor was he the one who organized this. I was more upset with my mother-in-law than some random kid trying to make ends meet. I told the woman not to worry and even consoled her when she started looking like she was going to cry. After she left, my husband ranted for about half an hour about how ridiculous it was for her to come to our house and make amends when her son had screwed everything up for us. I didn't understand why he was so mad at the kid when he should have been mad at his mother. I told him that, ultimately, the hacker didn't owe us anything, but his mom did. He didn't even owe us basic decency not to scam me out of my money. Sure, he was crooked for doing what he did, but that wasn't our business, and he wouldn't have had access to us if not for his mother. She's the one who approached him and got him involved, so if my husband wanted to be mad at someone, it should be her. She presented my details to the guy on a silver platter and made this happen. The hacker probably wouldn't have known me if not for her. But my husband said I was getting too emotional and should be equally mad at the guy who did the hacking because he was just as involved. He thought my consoling the hacker's mother was ridiculous when I didn't extend that to his mom. I reminded him that his mother was a criminal too in the eyes of the law, but that set him off. He started shouting at me, accusing me of being heartless. He said he'd already lost one parent and was about to lose another, but all I cared about was whether his mother got punished, showing him where my priorities were. I tried to defend myself because I thought he was being harsh, but it turned into a big fight. He stormed out a few hours ago, and I've been trying to call him, but his phone is switched off. I don't know how to feel about this. I do feel bad for him because I know how close he was to his dad, and his death hit him hard. He wasn't as close with his mother, but she's still his mom, and I'd probably feel the same way in his place. He's been on edge lately, and I don't know what to do. Our fight today was stupid because I think I overstepped too. I knew he was struggling emotionally with his mom likely going to jail, which isn't easy for any kid to come to terms with. He's been trying to balance his time between me, visiting his mom, and work. He says his mother regrets what she did and wants to apologize to me, but I don't want to visit her. She created this mess, and I don't know how to deal with it anymore. I really don't want to lose my husband. We're having a rough phase, but I know we can get through it if we try. He seems willing to try with both me and his mother, and I don't want to let him go. My husband came home really late last night after our fight. I stayed up waiting for him until midnight but fell asleep on the couch. I woke up when I heard him unlocking the door. It was late, so we didn't talk, but this morning, after a quiet breakfast, we decided to discuss things. He initiated the conversation and told me he'd gone to his mother's house, where he grew up. He knew where she kept the spare keys, so he got in easily. Technically, it was breaking and entering, but I didn't say anything because I could see him getting teary-eyed while talking. He said he went there to be alone because he suddenly missed his dad. He felt that if his father were still around, none of this would have happened. His dad would have knocked some sense into his wife and ensured I felt welcome in the family. Without him, my husband was struggling to hold his family together. He felt like he was failing as a son, a husband, and even himself. He said he went into his parents' bedroom, flipped through old photo albums, and took a nap in his childhood bedroom before coming home. He admitted he was going through a lot mentally and apologized for his behavior over the last few days since visiting his mother. He told me his father had made him promise to take care of his mom after he was gone, and that kept playing in his head because he felt he wasn't doing a good job. While talking, he broke down, and I hugged and consoled him for about half an hour while he let his feelings out. I cried a little too because I'd thought I was going to lose him. I explained my side, saying I'd never had anything against his mother initially, but what she did with the money and hacking was crazy. There were no two ways about it, and I couldn't look past that. Plus, she'd never been nice to me in the past, so I didn't want to be around her or forgive her. I respected that he wanted to help his mom, but I wasn't going to encourage it. The only thing I could do was stay out of it. This was a conflict of interest for us, and we needed to treat it as such. He agreed and said his mother deserved whatever legal punishment was coming because she'd screwed up. He couldn't help her with that, and he'd already done his duty as a son by visiting her every few days and putting her in touch with a good lawyer, even helping pay for it. There was nothing more he could or intended to do. Once that was out in the open, I felt relieved. I realized he didn't want to leave me and wasn't giving up on our marriage. I asked him to confirm, and he looked surprised, saying he hadn't even considered it. For him, this was just a rough phase, and we'd power through it. He hadn't forgotten his vows and was going to stick to them, which made me tear up. We spent another half hour crying and hugging because we were so emotional. The first week after our wedding wasn't filled with marital bliss as we'd expected. We were thrown headfirst into challenging situations and had to figure out how to deal with them without hurting each other. But I know that as long as we love each other, we can make it work. I don't know what the future holds, but we'll face it together. That's what marriage is about, and I'm sure we can make the best of this. For now, we're considering marriage counseling to make sense of our feelings so we don't lash out at each other like we did last evening. My husband bottles up his feelings and then has outbursts over petty things, while I keep talking even when he's agitated, which makes me seem insensitive. Maybe a counselor can help us with this. It's been a couple of weeks, and despite what many people believed, my husband and I are doing much better now. Counseling has helped a lot, and we're also seeing individual therapists, which makes a huge difference. Most of you advised me to break off the marriage and leave my husband, but I'm sorry, I love him too much to do that. I know it wouldn't be the best move for most people, but it's the best for me. He's a good son and a great husband, and that's all that matters to me. His mother is facing about 3 years for what she did, but she might get out sooner if she behaves, which I think she will because she seems terrified and is a shadow of the woman she used to be. I actually felt bad for her when I saw her recently and have forgiven her for her foolish actions. It's better to forgive and move on than hold grudges, especially when the person is already going to jail and being punished for their mistake. I think it's time I let this go from my heart. When she gets out, I might visit her, or maybe even sooner. I don't know. I just hope we can all move past this someday.